Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Ian Escalante, Director of Operations for Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. Ian, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Brandon. It's good to be here and good to know there's still some freedom loving people in this state.
100%, a lot more than people might expect. I'm hoping we can get better organized. Part of this in doing these videos is to get people better informed so that they can have a bigger impact, know what's going on, and fight back.
Absolutely.
So, Ian, since this is your first appearance on Free State Colorado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Ian Escalante and how did you get involved in politics?
Sure. Well, I would have to go back a long time. I was pretty much raised in politics. I think my parents started taking me to Tea Party meetings when I was about 10. I was that the Tea Party wave in the Obama era was right around the time when I was fairly young and started going to the local 912 group, local Tea Party meetings. I was homeschooled, so my required reading was the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Federalist Papers, anti-Federalist papers. So I've been involved in this for a very long time, well over a decade, almost 15 years now. So we're fighting hard, and yeah, I mean, I care immensely about our country. I care about our liberty. I care about our freedom, and I'm seeing that slowly but surely just start to erode more and more and more. Some states it's worse than others. But I mean, overall, across the country, we're seeing just a horrible erosion of individual rights, individual liberty, and a complete lack of regard from the politicians about our rights, about, individuals, about, what we do. And it seems like, the more time passes, the more people want to take full control of our lives and really just micromanage us. It's kind of like a helicopter parent who wants to manage every single aspect of their child's life. That's really what I'm starting to see from a lot of these politicians. And it's very horrifying. It's very scary. It's very scary when they can enforce the crazy stuff they're saying at a barrel of a gun.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that you've been in the fight for as long as you have. Definitely lucky to have such great parents, people educating you about our Constitution and what liberty means at such an early age. So that's awesome, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm thankful for it. And I think there are a lot more people of the, generation millennial toward Generation Z that are really starting to wake up and see a lot of what the crazy stuff that's going on. Unfortunately, not a lot of them really get involved. They kind of sit or they complain on Twitter. But we don't really see them getting out and organizing and voting. And, if they are voting, they're kind of voting, either straight ticket Republican or even at times, I know people who care about liberty that vote straight ticket Democrat because they just don't know any better.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think knowing better is half the battle, as they used to say, right? In some of the circles we travel in, educating the public is kind of frowned upon. It's seen as not necessarily an effective means of fighting back, right? But there's got to be some level of at least discussing what's going on, providing the necessary background, and giving people the informational tools to fight back. So, I really appreciate you joining me tonight, so we can do that for people here in Colorado.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Colorado, unfortunately, I mean, the GOP has been incompetent here for the last decade and a half. I don't know if you've ever read the blueprint, but in the blueprint, it really talks about how the Democrats have really been trying to get to this phase, to this level of control since 2004. Since the last time a Republican president won this state, they said, you know what? We want to start going after the West. And what I keep telling people, and this is what a lot of people on our side really fail to understand, is that if Colorado goes down, if we become California, if we become Illinois, this is going to be replicated across the entire West. Like if we have people that are watching from Utah or Montana or the Dakotas or Wyoming, you guys are next. So really, fighting for Colorado is not just fighting for a state that we love, it's fighting for the entire Mountain West region. If they are successful with this by flooding Denver with transplants, by flooding Boulder with transplants, they're just going to do the exact same thing in places like Utah or Montana. And we already see that happening in Montana. Montana is starting to become more purple after being a hard red state for decades. We're starting to see the influx of individuals going to Missoula, going to Bozeman, going to those big metro, not really metro because I mean it's Montana, but those highly densely populated areas, and we're really starting to see things start to turn blue in a state like Montana, where 10, 15 years ago, if you said, yeah, Montana is going to be a blue state, nobody would have believed you. Nobody would have believed you. But fighting, and I think the same could be said about Colorado in early 2000. If you said, Colorado was going to be, follow the trajectory of Illinois or California or New York, I think a lot of people would have said you were crazy. But if they can get away with it here, they will get away with it throughout the entire Mountain West. And as instead of Colorado being a purplish bluish dot in a fairly red sea, we're going to see a blue wall from California all the way over to the Dakotas, and honestly all the way over to Minnesota. We're going to see a giant blue wall there. And I mean, that has serious ramifications for our country. I mean, that's a lot of electoral votes presidentially. I mean, between the states, you're probably looking at maybe 20 senators, give 15 to 20 senators. And you're seeing this in Arizona too. They're doing the exact same thing in Arizona with Phoenix. So fighting for Colorado and kicking back these people, kicking back the Marxists, kicking back the Democrats and saying, listen, no, this is the West. Because it's really an affront too to the American way of life. I mean, the West has always been the bastion of freedom, the bastion of liberty. People came out West to escape the dense, crowded nature and the overall, regulatory and bureaucratic system that, was set up on the East Coast as early as, the mid 1800s. They came out here because they said, listen, we want to go to a new frontier because we want to live freely and we want to be able to, stake our own destiny. And the Democrats and the Marxists, because I mean, there's bad people in both parties, but the Democrats and the Marxists doing this is a complete slap in the face to the American freedom, to our way of life. And they're pretty much saying your country belongs to us now.
Yeah, no, 100%. Couldn't agree more. I think you really illustrated that Colorado is the tip of the spear. We got to fight here. The stakes are very high. It's kind of cliche in politics to say the most important election ever. Stakes have never been higher. But as things keep escalating, as political authoritarians keep grabbing more and more, stakes get higher every time. But thankfully, here in Colorado, we do have some organized groups, some organized opposition to these authoritarians. One of those is Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, which you're the director of operations for. So, for those who don't know, can you give a brief description of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners?
Sure. So Rocky Mountain Gun Owners was founded in the mid 1990s. It was founded because our founder, Dudley Brown, who would then go on to create the National Association for Gun Rights, which has been the most effective pro-Second Amendment group, I think, in the history of the Second Amendment movement, got very, very upset that groups like the National Rifle Association seem to care more about, just collecting money and not really actually going out and getting things done that need to be gotten done. And so he founded Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. He built it from the ground up to be, as we say, the largest, strongest, no compromise Second Amendment advocacy group that is state-based in the entire country. And that I think there's a very good argument that can be made for that. There are no other Second Amendment groups across the country that have been responsible for actually recalling candidates. We successfully recalled multiple Democrats back in 2013, the 2013-2014 election cycle, right after they passed the magazine ban. So we are a no compromise organization. What that means is it's very simple. The Second Amendment says that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. End of story. And that's really all it is. People want to make I heard a Democrat Representative Stephen Woodrow try to say the other day, well, Second Amendment really isn't absolute and it says militia and all that garbage. Like, no, read the founders, read the people who wrote the Second Amendment, look at what their original intent is, and look at all the constitutions in many, many states where the right to bear arms, including the Colorado Constitution, the right to bear arms is clearly enshrined in their state constitutions. The founders knew how important the right to keep and bear arms is because unless the people are armed, the government can run roughshod over everyone's rights and there's not a darn thing anyone can do about it. So we are a no compromise group. We don't make deals with the Democrats. We don't give ground. we don't say, oh, you want a magazine ban? Well, instead of 15 rounds, let's make 20 rounds. Or, oh, you want to expand background checks? Well, how about this? Let's make your concealed carry permit your background check, which is pretty much backdoor gun registry. You're like, no, we do not compromise. We are not going to allow them to take this away from us. And there are too many groups across the country that are willing to give ground, or they're afraid of the gun issue. The Democrats have successfully scared them into thinking that the gun issue is toxic or anything like that. And we say, no, this is what our country was founded on. The whole reason why we're free is because the people were able to keep and bear arms. I mean, the shot heard around the world, Battle of Lexington and Concord, was started because the British came and they tried to take the colonists' weapons away. That is what started the war for independence. So we are absolutely not going to give ground on this. Without the Second Amendment, the rest of our liberties might as well get thrown in the trash. And I think I think it was Dave Chappelle that said something like that. He's like, the First Amendment was first for a reason, and the second exists in case the first doesn't work. And that I honestly, I don't really consider Dave Chappelle to be a huge pro 2A guy, but I think he made a very, very good point there is like, listen, we have our right to, speak freely and to, assemble, to petition the government. But if the government starts throwing that down the toilet, there's only really one recourse for us, and that is to hold the government accountable and to say, oh, you want to come in and you want to take my kids away because I don't want them to get their genitals chopped off? Absolutely not. So that is why we take the Second Amendment so incredibly seriously at Rocky Mountain Gun Owners.
Oh, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners has definitely been the most effective and best organized group fighting for our Second Amendment rights here in Colorado, our right to self-defense. Engaged in many lawsuits, been fighting for many, many years. Definitely encourage people to become a member if they're not already. And you can check out some videos I did with Taylor Rhodes last year, talking about some of the gun bills that went through the legislature last year, some of the lawsuits, and kind of get back with him for some updates on that. But today I really want to talk about some of the anti-gun legislation and maybe even some pro-gun legislation that's being considered in the state legislature right now. So, Ian, let's jump into some policy.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Perfect. So, as Ian was saying earlier, unfortunately, Colorado has many anti-gun politicians serving in our state government. This year, we've seen some of the worst anti-gun bills introduced in the past decade. So, we're going to take a look at RMGO's Bill Watch webpage to go over these bills. This webpage is being constantly updated. It can be found at rmgo.org/billwatch. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, and we'll pull it up, and let's take a look. All right. Can you see it there, Ian?
Absolutely. Looking good.
Perfect. So if you'd be so kind to go through some of these bills here, let me make this a little bit bigger for people watching on their phones or at home. So this was just updated yesterday on February 15th, 2024. So if you want to go through these, I'd be happy to let's see what's going on.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the first one is, and this is probably the most egregious one that we've seen so far, is the 2024 assault weapons ban. Now, for the Free State folks that have been following Brandon for a while, you probably saw our executive director Taylor Rhodes talking about this last year. They tried to file this bill last year, but I mean, we turned the heat up on them so hard the Democrats actually killed their own bill. What this is going to do is it is going to be an all-encompassing ban. It is going to ban all semi-automatic rifles, and it's going to outright ban. They're actually naming certain types of rifles this year: the AR-15, the AK-47, any semi-automatic rifle that receives a detachable magazine. So that's going to ban all of them. Additionally, it is going to ban all semi-automatic pistols and all semi-automatic shotguns. So the only thing that will still be legal at the end of this is going to be maybe your 6-shooter revolver or a rimfire pistol. I mean, one could potentially make the argument that a revolver is a semi-automatic weapon. So maybe your rimfire pistols, your Henry's lever action, and your Mausers and your old hunting rifles, bolt action, lever action, things that can, weapons that can only hold, maybe 5 to 10 rounds. It's going to be pretty much it's a de facto gun ban. It's going to ban most standard issue guns that are here in the state of Colorado, and it's absolutely insane. Additionally, there comes with some serious civil penalties too. If you do not turn over your weapons to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, it's $250,000 for the first offense, and following additional offenses are going to be $500,000. And it's likely, the bill isn't abundantly clear, but it's likely if you're caught with multiple quote unquote assault weapons, you could be in a situation where you're getting charged 250, 500,000 per weapon that you have in your possession. So
Wow.
very, very scary stuff. The one good thing about this, the one good thing is that it is sponsored by Reps Tim Hernandez and Elizabeth Epps, and they are complete outcasts in the Democrat caucus. Nobody takes them seriously. Even their co-sponsors are people of the likes of Stephen Woodrow and Aman Judah, and people that are not taken seriously in the Democrat caucus, people that are looked at as very fringe, very extreme. There are right now the speaker has not signed on. I actually confronted Monica Duran, the House Majority Leader, last week, right after the bill was filed, and she was very, very dodgy about it, and didn't give me a solid answer on whether she supported it or not. She said, "Well, we're just going to let it play out." So she doesn't seem to be very interested in getting this done, and there's no Senate sponsor either. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to pass. We all need to be prepared as if they're going to get ready to ram this down our throats at any second. But early signs point towards it's probably going to end up in the trash can like it did last year.
Is Ian,
Um,
is this bill more extreme than last year's assault weapons ban?
So it's about equally as extreme. I mean, the original draft last year was completely insane. The draft that we saw come out in January, there was a confiscation clause in there. I mean, they were going to be sending CBI around to go and pretty much confiscate people's weapons, which is insane. This bill is more specifically encompassing. So last year, the language was a lot more vague, and it could very well have been used to encompass most semi-automatic pistols and things of that nature. This year, they're being a lot more honest about it. They're being a lot more straightforward. So it's actually easier for us to attack because we can say, listen, this is an all-encompassing gun ban. It's not, open-ended language like we saw last year.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. It is very encouraging that has not been moderate Democrats who've signed on to this bill like we did see last year. And that, yeah, it's the outcasts of the party, the outcasts of the legislature, people who've been censored and who are one step away from getting removed from the General Assembly there, that are the ones behind this bill. So, we'll definitely got to keep on watch on this one, but exciting to see that maybe the appetite for this type of legislation specifically, obviously there's other gun control I'm sure we expect to pass, but this specifically, at least there's a little bit of doubt in some of the mainstream Democrats' minds.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that's important to understand too is that both Epps and Hernandez are facing some pretty severe primary challenges that are being supported by Governor Jared Polis's office. I mean, former Speaker Alec Garnett, who is Jared Polis's chief of staff now, has endorsed both Epps and Hernandez as challengers. So we're seeing a lot of division there. And right now, I mean, both their primary challengers are tripling them on fundraising right now. So it's very likely that this could be just one last potential middle finger to the governor, who I've been told from Capitol insiders is not on board with an assault weapons ban. He was not on board last year. He was not on board when they first tried to file it back in 2021. So, I mean, as long as Jared Polis stays with the record he has on opposing an assault weapons ban, we very likely are not going to see this move. But then again, the fact of the matter is that should Jared Polis change his mind, the Democrats have more than enough votes in the House to pass it. And the Senate is going to come down to the absolute wire. It's going to come down to some Democrats and some very swing districts who don't really have good records on guns. So it's really going to depend on who's up for election this year and really if they care whether they get reelected or not.
Wow. Well, really interesting. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. And yeah, interesting how this bill specifically too kind of ties into some of the other themes we've been seeing in our state government recently. So
Absolutely.
perfect. Awesome. Well, let's move on here. What else we got this year?
So this one's really bad. It's not. This is probably the second most egregious bill that we've seen so far this year. This is Senate Bill 131, sponsored by. I mean, the people that if you follow Colorado politics at all, the names on this bill should not surprise you in the slightest. We got Sonia Jaquez Lewis. She is a poster child for Moms Demand Action. She is their mascot in the Colorado State Senate, along with Senator Tom Sullivan. We see the names of Chris Colker. He sponsored his name was on almost every gun control bill that was passed last year. Same with Kyle Brown and Mandy Lindsay. What this bill would do is this is a carbon copy of California's sensitive spaces bill. So it pretty much turns all public places into gun-free zones. This would ban church carry. This would ban campus carry. This would ban carry within 100 feet of a ballot box. This would ban carry in museums, zoos, aquariums, pretty much any public place outside of your own home or your own property would be it would be complete carry would be completely banned. And it even has a clause there to where if you live in a rental unit, gives the landlord authority to be able to ban carry in those, or even the property manager gives you the authority to ban carry or ban firearms, period, in your own home, which is absolutely insane. So this
Wow.
is something that we're going to fight really hard to stop. The good news is this bill is going to the Senate Judiciary Committee. You do see there's a hearing scheduled. We have 27 days to prepare for this hearing. It's going before Senate Judiciary, and Senate Judiciary is our best chance to stop it. It is the closest Senate committee. It's a five-person committee, three Democrats, two Republicans. And one of the Democrats, Senator Dylan Roberts, represents the Western Slope. He has a lot of gun owners in his district, and he previously has voted against some of the more extreme gun control. Last year, he voted against raising the age from 18 to 21 to purchase firearms because he flat out said he didn't think it was constitutional. He also voted against removing the liability for gun manufacturers and gun dealers. So those were two really big votes that he bucked his party pretty hard on. We're putting a lot of pressure on him at the moment. If you live in Eagle, Vale, Glenwood Springs, Steamboat Springs, Craig, Meeker. I mean, pretty much if you're looking at the state of Colorado, that entire northwest kind of quadrant is all part of Dylan Roberts' district. That's Senate District 8. Absolutely call his office. Tell him we are not going to stand for this. Put pressure on him. And hopefully he'll listen to his constituents and he'll vote against this. So
Wow.
another silver lining about this is that this bill, an identical bill like this, was passed in California back in September. And there were some gun groups out there, Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America, swiftly filed a lawsuit on this. And there was an injunction that was very, very quickly put on this. And the judge who ruled on the injunction is in his opinion said that this law was sweeping, repugnant to the Second Amendment, and in direct defiance of the Supreme Court. So we have not just a district court judge in California, but a couple of weeks later, the Ninth Circuit actually struck it down. Ninth Circuit panel struck this down as completely out of step with the Bruin decision. So it is very likely, should this bill get signed into law, we can go ahead, swiftly file a lawsuit, and we'll probably see a big fat injunction thrown on this very quickly. So this law will not hold up if it is passed, but nonetheless, lawsuits are expensive. I think kind of their point in filing this bill is they want groups like Rocky Mountain Gun Owners and National Foundation for Gun Rights to spend resources, time, talent, treasure, money on fighting back against these frivolous laws so that we can't put as much money in elections and getting these people unseated. So just because if this law were to get signed into law, this bill were to get signed into law, it'd probably get struck down in the courts overnight. We still need to do everything we can to stop it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, that was a great breakdown of this bill. Glad to see it's a similar bill has been ruled unconstitutional. One pressure point I would say, if it does make it out of committee, if it makes it to the governor's desk, I mean, we all know Governor Polis wants to be the president someday. So, if he does sign it into law, the fact that he would sign it, and he knows the bill's unconstitutional, he knows this lawsuit's going to cost X amount of dollars for Colorado taxpayers. It's extremely irresponsible of somebody who wants to be the president. Somebody this could be used against him in future campaigns. Not that he necessarily cares, but I think that would be a good little leverage point as well. So awesome
Absolutely.
break, awesome breakdown on that one. Let's see what else we got here.
Alrighty. So this one's really bad. So this is again, we kind of rank them. We put them on the website
Oh,
based on the worst all the way to the least worst. Now they're all pretty bad, but unfortunately, some are worse than others. This one is the requiring gun owners to carry liability insurance. So we saw something similar pass to this in San Jose, California, where there's actually gun ownership tax, where you would literally be taxed based solely on the fact that you own a gun, which is a massive 14th Amendment violation. I mean, that is pure government discrimination. And what this is going to do, this is going to require you to get $100,000 liability insurance policy in order to own a firearm. If you own a firearm, you got to have a policy. And also, it allows insurance companies to deny coverage to individuals that they deem to be a substantial risk. Now, one thing that Democrats and politicians across the board, you see this in Republicans do the same thing, is they love vague and very, very open-ended language because it kind of lets them, they can do whatever they want with this vague and open-ended language. This would open up, we've seen the whole idea of ESG getting brought up here in the last couple of years. I mean, this is ripe for abuse from insurance companies who just have a vendetta against gun owners. And we're probably going to see a lot of insurance companies say, hey, we refuse to cover this. If you do not get coverage, you're then required to petition the court to ask them to waive your liability insurance requirement, which then again, the court can say yes or no. So this is a really, really bad bill. And this needs to be stopped at all costs. Now, some silver lining here is that bills that initiate in the House likely there's a decent chance that the Senate, because the Senate tends to be the more reasonable chamber here in Colorado, um, and the Senate is more closely in lockstep with the governor. If we don't see it originating in the Senate, it's likely that they haven't fully gotten the governor on board yet. If we do see it in the Senate, that's where we should be really concerned and say, okay, this definitely has the governor's stamp of approval. This is likely to fly through both chambers and make it to the governor's desk. So again, it is not good. We need to fight like hell against it. I mean, this is just ridiculously unconstitutional. I mean, there is just no way, shape, or form that this fits under the Bruin decision or again the plain text of the U.S. Constitution. I mean, this is a clear infringement. This is a clear chilling of the right to bear arms, of the right to carry. And another thing too, and I'll get to this once we get down to House Bill 1174. Um, these bills all kind of tie together. This is one big fat package of gun control. Last year we saw the bills that they were gun control bills, but they're kind of filed separately. Make no mistake, these bills are all tied together. These bills are meant to feed off of each other. And that's the scariest part about this.
wow. Yeah, no, it is very scary. It's definitely a coordinated assault on our right to defend ourselves. We've seen, unfortunately, a lot of pro-criminal legislation being introduced this year. We've even seen penalties for criminals get shot down, whether it's gun theft or somebody trafficking in children. The Democratic majority in the House killed both those bills within the last few weeks. Yet they're targeting law-abiding gun owners. I mean, it is very chilling. Real quick on that liability insurance, I feel like I've heard of this legislation being passed in other states or has that been challenged and struck down in court to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, the only other places where this stuff has been passed is like hardcore radical Democrat cities like San Jose.
Oh yeah.
Um, so no state as of yet has actually put this into practice. I don't believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that no state has actually passed this. I know this has been floated. This has been something that Moms Demand Action has been getting off on for years now, and it's something they've been really been pushing for. But I don't think we have any other states that are doing this. New York is actually trying to ram through something like this right now as well. So, and
Wow.
the fact of the matter is, Brandon, is that, yes, we see a historic assault on the Second Amendment here in Colorado, but this is nationwide. There's an assault weapons ban that's about to pass the House in Virginia. There's an assault weapons ban that passed out of committee in Pennsylvania. Massachusetts just passed the most sweeping gun ban I think we've ever seen in U.S. history, where they banned things like silhouette targets and most, standard ammunition. The state of Michigan is trying to ban 5.56. I mean, across the board, New Mexico just passed the 7-day waiting period. We are seeing a full scale assault on our gun rights here in the state of, not just here in Colorado, but all over the country. So it's so important that we, especially here in Colorado, we're able to strike this down and say, listen, we will not let you get away with this. Because if they get away with it here, it's going to signal, in other swing states, the second the Democrats get a majority, they're going to see, oh, yeah, they got away with it in Colorado. Pennsylvania's next. Virginia's next. I mean, the Virginia just took the House of Delegates, the Dems took the House of Delegates and the state Senate, and now they're trying to ram this down everyone's throats. So
Wow.
it's so important that we fight back against this at all angles.
100%. Definitely well said. Appreciate you tying it into the national picture. I don't pay attention to any politics outside of Colorado, so that is very interesting. But let's see what else we got here. This one I know had just recently passed committee.
Yeah, so I was in on Tuesday, I was in a 5.5 hour bill hearing for this. What this would do is, again, um, what they're doing here is this is not necessarily, they can't come right out and ban concealed carry. They can't come right out and ban a lot of this stuff because it just won't hold up in court. But what they are going to try to do is regulate time, place, and manner, which in theory is going to be a de facto gun ban. Now, this bill ties very, very strongly into Senate Bill 131, the Sensitive Spaces Bill. This would greatly increase the requirements to get a concealed handgun permit. Now, as I'm sure we know, as lovers of liberty, you should not need a permit to carry a weapon, open or concealed. There's no reason you should need a permit. We're up to 28 constitutional carry states. South Carolina is right on the brink of adding another one to the rank. So we have over half the country that has done away with permits. A lot of surrounding states of Colorado, every state that borders Colorado, with the exception of New Mexico, is a constitutional carry state, in some shape or some way, shape, or form. Some are better than others. Nebraska is a little bit iffy, but I mean, overall, you do not need a permit to carry in every other surrounding state of Colorado than New Mexico. So we're really seeing a trend that we're moving in the right direction, with constitutional carry. Louisiana's on the brink of passing constitutional carry as well. What this would do is this would take the already, it's not really super tedious here in Colorado, but they want to make it to where it is more difficult to get a concealed handgun license. So first thing it's going to do is it's going to turn over the certification of instructors to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. So if you are a certified instructor to teach concealed handgun permit classes, you would now have to go and get certified with Colorado Bureau of Investigation. First thing that's going to do is it's going to greatly decrease the amount of trainers we have here in the state. Again, making it harder, more difficult to get a concealed handgun permit. On top of that, all of the concealed carry course curriculum is now going to be regulated by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. And it is completely open-ended. The CBI has almost free reign over what the curriculum is going to be. You have to take an 8-hour course, and in that 8-hour course, you are required, the instructor, the CBI certified instructor, is required to teach a positive view of red flag gun confiscation and safe storage. That is written into the bill. So we are now going to have, instead of good pro-gun instructors that are trying to teach firearm safety courses, and I mean, even if you live in a constitutional carry state, if you're a new gun owner, you absolutely should take a firearm safety course. Again, it shouldn't be mandated by government, but responsible firearm owners should be able to know how to properly use their weapon. Instead of making this a firearm safety course, this is just going to be riddled with anti-gun propaganda coming straight from Phil Weiser and Jared Polis's office. And we know, I mean, Jared Polis is no fan of the Second Amendment, and Phil Weiser thinks you should have a permit to purchase guns, to purchase ammunition, to purchase magazines. I mean, it's absolutely insane. We have people that we have unelected bureaucrats, which is CBI, an unelected bureaucratic law enforcement agency that's accountable to no one but the executive branch, deciding what the criteria for these trainings are going to be. On top of that, you're now going to need to pass a live fire exam with 70% competency. The criteria and the parameters of that live fire exam are up to, guess who? CBI. So CBI could make it to where you have to shoot, a 4x4 target 200 yards out with a pistol, and your grouping has to be 70% accurate. Additionally, and this is something that we saw back in the old days before shall issue was enshrined by the Bruin decision. We used to have what was called may issue, where it was up to the discretion of the county sheriff or the state to issue concealed carry permits. And we used to see them put up these crazy parameters for trying to be able to get certified to obtain a concealed handgun permit. Additionally, you will now have to take a written test and pass it with 80% competency. The contents of that are up to, guess who? Colorado Bureau of Investigation. And what's even crazier is that we had people from Moms Demand Action that were bleeding and yelling, saying that the bill didn't go far enough. In the bill, they say it's an open book exam for the written course. Moms Demand Action people were pretty much saying we need to make it so difficult that you have to be a lawyer to pass it, and it should be a closed book exam. I mean, making it almost impossible for ordinary citizens, unless you are a legal expert, to be able to obtain concealed handgun permits. So it's a serious problem. We are probably going to see fees greatly increase on this. We're going to see fees astronomically increase because they're going to be, I mean, it's the theory of supply and demand. There are going to be far less instructors, which is going to mean that waiting times for issuance of these concealed carry permits is going to be longer. And now there's all this new stuff that you have to go through. So we're going to see instructors probably raising fees on the concealed handgun license. And also the fees are set by, again, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. So again, we're seeing a huge CBI power grab here. You know, right now they're pretty much paper pushers. They don't really do anything other than they help manage the background check system here. And if there's maybe a major crime that local governments or local law enforcement wants help with, they can call on CBI to insert them to bring them in for assistance for lab kits and things of that nature. But now we're turning, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation really into an enforcement arm of the executive branch. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper as we get further along in these bills.
Yeah, absolutely horrific. I mean, absolutely a total assault. I mean, the big thing too, I've seen a lot of criticism over the bill sponsors because this is a bill that directly affects working class Coloradans, those who can't necessarily take the time for these classes. They can't take the time off work because they're working multiple jobs to feed their families, just to pay their bills, and this ever increasing expenses that we have in this state. These expensive fees. I mean, average normal working class people wouldn't be able to afford it. So you're basically creating this two-tier system where only the rich would be able to even get concealed carry permits. Everybody else would either have to do it illegally and take the risk or be defenseless in the public. I mean, it's absolutely class warfare by another means. Yeah, horrific bill. Let's hope that one fails. Unfortunately, it did pass that House Judiciary Committee, but we'll see how far it ends up going. But let's go ahead and move on here.
I want to stay for a second on 1174 here, and what's insane is that I was in that hearing for about 4 or 5.5 hours, and the stuff that was coming out of these Democrats' mouths was appalling. When they were making their closing arguments on this bill, Representative Jennifer Bacon, who's the assistant majority leader for the House Democrats, said, and I quote, "Your rights end where the compelling state interest begins." Additionally, Representative Stephen Woodrow was quoting slave law as justification for passing restrictions on concealed carry. He cited Justice Scalia's opinion in DC versus Heller and took this little excerpt of it, which, by the way, that opinion is now obsolete based on the Bruin decision. That is no longer applicable. And he was referring to 19th century concealed carry bans and how the courts upheld them. Well, if you actually look at the case law and you look at the specific laws that were challenged in courts, a great example is the 1893 case on the state of Florida, my home state, their concealed carry ban, where the one of the Supreme Court justices in the majority opinion said this law was literally made so that free Black Americans would be barred from carrying. That's what these are. These are Jim Crow era laws that he's citing, and they were upheld by corrupt pro Jim Crow justices and judges in the courts that literally said this law does not apply to white people. This only applies to free blacks. The purpose of this law was to disarm free Black Americans. So if you look at, what we're seeing here, what we're really seeing is the new era of Jim Crow laws here. This is no longer, it's no longer about race. What this is what we're seeing is two tiers of citizens in our society now. Gun owners, uh, you know, lower income people, the middle class, and the ruling elites, the political class, the legislators, the lawyers. That's what we're seeing now. We're really starting to see, where gun owners and middle class individuals are being treated like second class citizens. They might as well have been told to just get to the back of the bus. That's what we're seeing here. We are seeing another era of severe government discrimination against the free, law-abiding citizens of our country. So it's really brazen. And I went after Representative Woodrow on Twitter the other day and called him out. And I said, "Hey, you're quoting slave law." And he went ahead and he freaked out, and he ended up going on an anti-gun tirade for like 3 days straight, completely losing his mind, IQ dropping lower than it already is. I mean, he went to law school in Chicago, and it shows. But I mean, we have some really, really, really bad people in the Colorado General Assembly, and it's so important for individuals that are watching this. Like, you need to pick out candidates. Election season is coming very quickly. You need to find good pro-gun, pro-liberty candidates to run in these competitive seats, and it's time that we give a historic electoral beatdown to these SOBs who think that they can just rule over us.
Nice. Well, well said. Well said, Ian. Definitely appreciate that commentary. And it couldn't have said it better myself. I think you're 100% right. It is this new era of discrimination. It's a state versus everybody else. Get in line or get to the gulag basically. So
Exactly.
happy that you're fighting. Happy that Rocky Mountain Gun Owners is out there working for our rights.
Absolutely. So this next bill, we're getting towards the bills that are less bad, but they're still really bad nonetheless. This is Senate Bill 66. What this would do is it is gun purchase tracking. It would require credit card companies to create a new merchant code for specifically for Colorado-based businesses. I want to emphasize Colorado-based businesses. I'll get back to that in a second. Where firearms, accessories, and anything having to do with firearms are right now currently classified under sporting goods. Because you know what a firearm is? It's a sporting good. Okay. It is no different than a bow and arrow or a hunting vest or anything like that. They are sporting goods. They are currently accurately classified as sporting goods. Well, this would do is this would create a new merchant code for specifically for firearms. It would give the Attorney General's office access to these codes so that they could track gun purchases, and if they saw anything and examples that were given, and it really goes to show that these people have no idea, they probably never bought a gun, probably never owned a gun in their entire life. They're saying things like spending $13,000 at a gun shop could potentially be flagged and sent to the Attorney General's office, and you could have CBI showing up at your door. Well, I mean, I hate to break it to these people, but guns aren't cheap. Guns are not cheap. If you want to buy a Barrett 50 caliber rifle, you're going to be throwing down about $15,000. I mean, if you go and let's say you want to buy an FN Scar, that's probably about a $5,000 gun. And let's say you want to buy a really nice Vortex optic for it, that's another $2,000. And let's say you want to throw a flashlight on there, or let's say you want to upgrade the trigger or get a Cerakote. I mean, you can very, very easily rack up a $10,000 tab at a gun shop, or maybe you like the gun shop that you bought the firearm from, but maybe you want to get it Cerakoted at a different gun shop. So you're spending, maybe $5,000-6,000 on the gun at the gun shop. Then you go to another gun shop, and specifically, they're saying we're going to flag people who spend large amounts of cash, large amounts of money at gun shops. I mean, this is specifically targeted to people who are stockpiling, to people who are gun collectors, people who are trophy hunters. I mean, this is not targeting out of the ordinary. They're trying to make it out like, oh, this is targeting, irregular buying patterns. But these people are so stupid, or maybe they don't care, is that these are very regular buying patterns for gun owners. I mean, my handgun that I have costs it costs about $1,200, and it's a Glock 47. So can you imagine how much a really, really, expensive high-end rifle is going to cost you? Again, a Barrett 50 caliber rifle is going to cost you about $13,000 to $15,000. So they're targeting everyday gun owners, and it's absolutely egregious. And additionally, and this is probably the most nefarious part of this bill, is that the merchant code would only be applied to Colorado businesses. So if you go to Bass Pro Shops, their headquarters is in Missouri. This law will not apply to them. If you go and buy a gun at Bass Pro Shops, it's still going to be classified as sporting goods. You go to Murdoch's, you go to Shields, you go to any major Walmart, you can go buy guns at Walmart. You go to any major store, okay, that sells firearms, whose a big box store whose headquarters is not in Colorado. I mean, Cabela's is now owned by Bass Pro Shops as well. That's not going to happen. You're not going to get tracked. This is only going to apply to local FFLs, to small businesses. Okay. Again, we see the government. It's the two classes of citizens here. It's the state and big corporations versus the little guy versus small businesses. This is going to cause a lot of gun shops to close down, which is, I think, their end goal. I think they want to drive fire. I think they're literally saying to firearm owners, we don't like your kind around here. You're not welcome here. Get out. And I think that is the message that they're trying to send.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, absolutely horrific. I mean, total gun registration scheme. What really
Absolutely.
frightens me with this type of bill too is that they could flag purchases, right? So they could say, hey, listen, maybe they set up a system where they could deny, they see this purchase come through this merchant code, and maybe you're on this list, maybe you're on some government list, and they deny the transaction at the time. I mean, it's not out of the realm of technological possibility for them to be able to do such a thing, and then send the federales to your door right after you. So I mean, it's just a way to totally control the law-abiding population. Because as we know, the gangbangers, the criminal members out there of society, they're either stealing their firearms or they're getting them illegally some other way. So clearly, this isn't going to do anything. It's not going to do anything at all to reduce crime, to reduce violence in our society, and go after the actual people who are the criminal class. It's going after those law-abiding people who want to follow the law, who want to do the right thing, who want to, go through the process that they think is expected of them by by our government. So it's absolutely, I mean, not shocking, because we've seen things like this before, but it's so egregious and so anti-American, anti-Coloradan that people like Tom Sullivan and Meg Froelich should be run out of our state.
No, it is absolutely disgraceful what they're trying to do in this state. And another thing too is that the FBI very recently came out and said, if you shop at Cabela's, and they went to the credit card companies and said, if you shop at Cabela's, you shop at Bass Pro Shops, if you shop at sporting goods stores, you could be a domestic terrorist. So they are now encouraging Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Wells Fargo to start flagging transactions, consistent transactions at these places as domestic terror threats. So, I mean, if you're telling me that this is not going to be abused, you're probably smoking as much crack as Hunter Biden. So it's absolutely insane.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely frightening for sure. So let's keep going here. I know we're getting a little tight on time here. So a couple more bills. I'd like to just maybe stick with the ones that have been introduced, and then in the
Sure,
future we
sure.
could talk about some of the other ones as they come forward. But this is a great introduction. Really appreciate you taking the time to go over all of this here.
Of course, of course. So this one, and this is actually the very first gun control bill we saw filed this session. You can see Senate Bill 3. And I kind of tongue in cheek dubbed this the CBI Gestapo bill. And if you understand the description, you'll understand why. This is giving, like I said before, when we talked about CBI right now, they're paper pushers. They send forensic lab kits to local law enforcement. They help manage the background check system. And they only get involved if called upon. Well, this would create a new illegal firearms unit in the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and give them the authority to start launching investigations in local jurisdictions. Now, why might you ask? Well, thankfully, CBI offered, because the original draft of this bill just said they're going to go after illegal firearm activity. Super open-ended, very, very unclear. And they were selling it as, oh, we want to go after people who lied on their 4473 form on their background check, which is a felony. Well, CBI went ahead and just took their mask off completely, and CBI offered an amendment that they gave to Tom Sullivan to say, actually, we are going to go after the 4473 form, FFLs who are selling magazines above 15 rounds, and ghost guns. That's specifically
Wow.
written in the bill that is their job. That's what they need to do. And they don't even need to obtain approval from the district attorney or the county sheriff. And that just flies in the face of the Colorado, form of government. We have, since the founding of our state in 1876, we've been very, very, the people of Colorado have been very adamant that they support home rule. Denver is going to govern differently than Alamosa. Alamosa is going to govern differently than Steamboat Springs. Steamboat Springs is going to govern differently by Grand Junction. And that's actually a very, very good decentralized form of government. If you don't like the way Boulder County runs things, move to Jefferson County, move to Weld County, move to, anywhere else where you can actually, it gives people the opportunity to be able to live in areas that align better with their values, or, it really gives people, it's kind of like a free market for local government. You know what I mean? It gives people choice on what kind of government they want to live under. And for the longest time, and we even saw Democrats with this, for the longest time, did not touch the whole home rule thing because they knew the people of Colorado weren't going to go for it. And now they don't care anymore. They know they're in bad shape. They know they're going to lose. They're running the ball as far down the field as humanly possible. And I really do think this is going to backfire. I think this is going to backfire on them immensely. A lot of Coloradans are getting sick and tired, even people who are apolitical, even people who, might consider themselves unaffiliate. They're pushing the envelope too far on this. They're pushing it too far. They're really inserting themselves into individuals' lives, inserting themselves. I came out here and we probably had, a whole lot of district attorneys and county sheriffs saying, listen, we are not a fan of this at all. Like, you need to stay out of our business. We know how to run we know how to enforce the law in our counties. We know what needs to be done. We know what needs to happen here. Stay out of our way.
Wow.
And they still voted for it. They still passed it. So very unfortunate there. We can go ahead. We'll make this one the last one. This last one down here is kind of a feel-good bill. We don't really need to get into that.
Perfect. No, that makes sense there. I really think it's important that people, as you can see the notes on the side here, so that Senate Bill 3 has passed the Judiciary Committee. There's more committees for it to be heard in. So there's an opportunity for individuals, for pro-liberty, pro-gun Coloradans to show up, make your voice heard, show up at committee hearings. Take your 3 minutes, speak truth to power, look these anti-gun authoritarians in the eye, tell them how wrong they are. It's extremely empowering. It does make an impact, whether it changes the bill vote or not. It is important for people to show up, to speak out, and really get involved. It's really the first step for this election in 2024 is to get involved with what's going on in the legislature, to really track the legislation. Who are the biggest offenders? Who are these anti-gun tyrants trying to violate our rights, trying to infringe on our freedoms? And like you said, Ian, these people need to be held accountable come November. And it starts with seeing how they behave in the state legislature.
Absolutely. So this
You,
last bill
yeah,
is
perfect.
actually a good bill. We got a chance to support a good bill this session, but like all good things in the Colorado General Assembly, they die very quickly. And this was a bill to reform civil asset forfeiture to make it to where, very common sense. The practice of civil asset forfeiture is one, it's unconstitutional. It's also just completely immoral and should be completely banned. The fact that the government can take your property off of a presumption without a criminal conviction flies in the face of our very founding principles. It's disgusting. And we saw this unfortunately come to an end by 3 votes in the House Judiciary Committee. And we are seeing that even people from both parties don't care about your rights. They don't always have to be Democrats that, want to run roughshod over your rights. Unfortunately, we saw Republicans kill this bill. We actually had the stars aligned where we had, out of an 11-person committee, um, we had 4 Democrats actually vote in favor of this bill because a lot of the more radical Democrats, even though they are completely wrong on a lot of stuff, they actually do have it right on civil asset forfeiture. Now, they have it right on civil asset forfeiture for different reasons. They come at it from more of an egalitarian standpoint, but the points they make aren't necessarily wrong. Um, they voted for it, and we only needed 2 Republicans to vote for it in order to pass. And the 3 Republicans on that committee went ahead and sided with the corrupt law enforcement police union and killed this bill. It's very unfortunate because it goes to show that, yes, the Democrats really are our big enemy right now, but we can't just go to sleep and say, all right, if you have an R next to your name, you're solid. Like,
Right.
we need to make sure we're holding both parties to account here. And RMGOs come under a lot of fire, and I really couldn't care less. They come under a lot of fire. It's like, you're not playing on Team R. And it's like, well, you're not playing on Team Liberty. If you're playing on Team Liberty, we'll never go after you. There's a reason why we've never gone after people like Ken DeGraff or Scott Bottoms or Patrick Neville when he was in the legislature. There's a reason why we go after some of these other Republicans who want to play the stupid compromise game with the Democrats, or they're too scared of the police unions and the law enforcement cartel that they go ahead and still vote against your liberties. So it's so important, even if you live in a hard red area. I mean, even if you live in a place like Weld County, like a place like Fort Lupton, or Berthoud or Grand Junction, you know, you can't really just go to sleep and say, well, my representative is a Republican. He's probably not doing anything wrong. We really got to go after those Democrats. Like, no, keep your representatives accountable. I mean, we don't have a lot of Republicans in the House right now. We need every single Republican we possibly have in that House to be 100% in our corner. The problem is a lot of them aren't. So, for those of you who live in these areas like Grand Junction, Berthoud, Fort Lupton, Keensburg, that, southern Weld County, check up to see how your representatives voted or have been voting
Yes.
this session. And if they haven't been voting well, you need to throw them out because we have so many enemies on the other side that we cannot afford, and we do not have time for our own people to be stabbing us in the back.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I love that about Rocky Mount Gun Owners. It's a nonpartisan organization. If Republicans are doing bad things, if the Republicans are supporting anti-liberty legislation, you call them out, you challenge them. You're not afraid to challenge Republicans, which I think is so important. We're fighting for something bigger here, right? I mean, it's liberty, it's freedom, it's our founding principles, it's these rights that we have that are inherent God-given rights that we have as human beings. And if Republicans want to fight, go against those, then they definitely deserve to take just as much flack as the Democrats. So just to name them, Representative Ryan Armagost, he's actually, I really like Representative Armagost. I think he's a great guy, but he's a very, very pro law enforcement type of legislator. If you look at the bills he sponsored this year, so I'm sure he gets a phone call up from the sheriff or a phone call up from the police union, and they say, hey, we don't like this bill. He's going to go along with it. Very unfortunate. Representative Gabe Evans, as you said, that's the Keensburg, Southern Weld County. He is running for higher office this year. So hopefully, his voters kind of hold him accountable for that. And then, of course, Matt Soper, Representative Soper out on the Western Slope, who claims to be very pro-gun and pro-freedom, but unfortunately, votes like this kind of tarnish that reputation. Was interesting to see some of the Democrats, as you said, support this bill. Come out. Jennifer Bacon, Scott Woodrow, Marbury, Amabile, some of the most anti-gun people out there. But hey, if we can find common ground on something like civil asset forfeiture, let's get that through, right? If liberty can win, liberty can win, and it doesn't matter as much on party. It really is about the issues. So, really appreciate what RMGO does in terms of not towing the party line, but really willing to be an independent voice, standing up for all of Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the Super Bowl, Brandon. I mean, this is our rights. You know, we don't gamble with our rights. And the thing that made, killing this bill so incredibly egregious is that right now, we have red flag gun confiscation here where you can have your weapons seized without a criminal conviction. Well, that is a form of civil asset forfeiture. If this bill would have passed, your firearms could not be seized unless you had a criminal conviction. And that is why a vote against civil asset forfeiture reform is an anti-gun vote.
Wow. Yeah, no, really, really important there. So yeah, like you said, we're out of time here, so we'll cut it off there. I'd love to talk about these other bills, kind of scrolling through them here as they come up. Please keep us informed, keep us updated. Ian would definitely love to have you back and keep us up to date. Ian, you did join us previously on one of our weekly legislative activism live streams that we're doing, the Free State Colorado with the Libertarian Party of Colorado. I hope you can join us again to go over some of these
Absolutely.
bills, especially if it's that we really focus on that week, what bills are being heard. So if there's
Sure.
one coming up in committee, we'd love to, get people engaged, really encourage people to show up. Individuals need to understand the power they have to use their voice, to show up at the legislature, to make your voice heard. It really is a necessary thing. But what else can people do, Ian? What else can people do to support Rocky Mountain gun owners to push back?
Absolutely. So the first thing you need to do is every one of you needs to sign your petition to stop the assault weapons ban. You can go to rmgo.org/AWB. Very, very easy to remember. Go there, sign your petition. We are going to deliver these petitions, unlike some of these other groups that get petitions. We are going to deliver these petitions to the legislators themselves. We're going to print them out. We're going to get a nice big stack. I'm going to go down to the Capitol. I'm going to slam them on the desks of these politicians and say, this is what your constituents, the people you claim to represent, have to say about your actions here. Do that. And right now, what we need now more than ever is we need to beef up our war chest. Elections are coming. 2024 is going to be a very, very big year. This is going to be a make or break year for the state of Colorado. The Democrats are poking the bear right now, and they're very open about the fact that they're poking the bear. Stephen Woodrow was quoted pretty much. He said to gun owners, he said, we used to be really afraid of you guys. At this point, you guys can show up at the Capitol all you want, is pretty much paraphrasing what he said. They're poking the bear and they want to see how much they can get away with. And what we need to make sure is that we give them a very, very swift smackdown at the ballot box this year and say, yeah, you're not getting away with this. You are not getting away with this. Absolutely not. You want to maintain the levers of power. You want to keep your majorities. You leave our Second Amendment alone. That's so important. We need funds to be able to go on the attack against, anti-gun people and swing seats. Tomorrow, I'm organizing a group of activists to go knock doors in Highlands Ranch and represent Bob Marshall's district. Bob Marshall filled out his RMGO survey saying he would never vote for red flag gun confiscation. What's one of the first votes he took when he got sworn in? He voted to expand red flag gun confiscation. So we're going to hold them to account. We're going to make sure that his term ends at the beginning of 2025 because you don't lie to your voters and you don't get away with it. We need funds to be able to go after the likes of Jennifer Parenti, who co-sponsored red flag expansion. She's in a very competitive seat in Erie. We need to go after folks like Stephanie Vigil down in Colorado Springs, voted for every single gun control bill that has ever crossed the floor. She's also voted for a bunch of this gender woke identity garbage that would absolutely decimate parental rights across the state. And I mean, I could go down the name. We probably have about 11 to 12 districts in the House that we're going to play in, competitive districts. That doesn't include primaries. When you include primaries and open seats, we are going to probably be closer to about 15 to 16 races in the House, probably about 5 races in the Senate. Someone who really needs to be thrown out of office is Senator Chris Colker. Senator Chris Colker has stuck his name on almost every gun control bill that we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years. And he's in a swing district in Littleton. And the most egregious part is actually he's in Senate District 16, and the RMGO office is in Senate District 16. So it's obligatory that we send this guy packing because we can't let him get away with this. And in order to do that, we need you to donate. We need you to open your wallets. This is a survival fight. Our state depends on how this legislative session and how this election season goes. If we let the Democrats, God forbid, they pass all this garbage and we give them a cakewalk into reelection, how much worse do you think the 2025 and 2026 legislative session is? If they go in and they go, and McCluskey and Fenberg and Polis all look at each other and go, "Oh man, wow, we thought we were in for it, but we did fine. We actually grew our majorities." All bets are off now. So you need to get involved. You need to stop these people, and you need to make them pay a price.
Wonderful. Well, Ian, I really appreciate your time. I'll look forward to talking to you again, and I hope and take care.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. You have a blessed night.
Thank you, sir.